going on? Welcome to SOFREP Radio. This is Rad. I am your host today, and I have a very special guest, and we're going to have a very cool conversation. Ricardo Perez, U.S. Army sniper, been to Afghanistan, author, writing a book, has something to talk about with that. And I want to welcome you to SOFREP Radio. Welcome, Ricardo. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Rad. A little bit about myself. Well, like you said, I was served as a sniper in a striker brigade in the U.S. Army from 2006 to 2010. And yeah, just did my 4.5 years, contract, my required time, got out and really just started my academic journey into where I'm at today as a research scientist at the University of Washington Virology, where I work on the NGS team. And the NGS just stands for Next Generation Sequencing. So I work on the team that helps sequence COVID for the variants here in Washington State. We do a large portion of that work. And we, get samples from all over, study samples from different companies like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. And, we just, work hard with all kinds, not just COVID, there's a bunch of different viruses. There's a big HPV project going on, right?
And avian flu, or the avian bird flu is going on here in Utah currently.
Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit
with the birds, so that's going on. They're saying if you have chickens in your backyard, because there are people around here who do, to be cautious of where you're going to get it, like if you're going to a park and there's ducks. But I'm just blown away, first of all, okay, because not only are you on the front lines as a sniper, you're on the front lines sniping COVID. You're trying to
it's been some pretty strange realizations being at the tip of the spear on kind of different arrows,
Yeah, but right, I mean, you're just so that seems very selfless. Now, let me ask you something. Did your recruiter tell you the truth about joining the military?
No, I think this was,
and did you get your bonus?
I joined in 2006, so this was still with a time when recruiters had quotas they had to meet. I think the Army dropped that in 2009, maybe. So because there was a lot of recruiters committing suicide.
They're still fighting
because of that stuff. So a lot of guys I served with were recruiters. One of them just finished recruiting duty and retired from it. So it's definitely some craziness that they got to deal with. And I couldn't imagine before, when you actually had like quotas you had to meet.
Like you had to, hey, get us bodies. Now, let me ask you regarding, going through sniper training, you have to be airborne, right?
No, I don't think you have to be. I don't think so. You might have to be, though, because
did you go through
that? I did airborne school as well, right after basic training.
Oh, so you went, did you go 11 Bravo infantry? Is that the course that you selected?
Yeah, I did. It's 11 X-ray, you end up 11 Bravo or 11 Charlie in basic training, and 11 Charlie are the mortarmen. And so,
cool.
Signed up 11X, ended up 11 Bravo, and mostly because I signed up with Ranger in my contract, because I wanted to go to Ranger school. It's trying to be super cool, right? I wanted to sign up and do airborne school, Ranger school, and then eventually try out for special forces. And so when I signed up for Ranger in my contract, I'm thinking Ranger school, but then after airborne school, they're like, okay, you guys with Rangers, now y'all are going to what did they call it at the time? RIP, the Ranger Induction Program.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wait a minute, Ranger Battalion? No, I want to go to Ranger school. And so I ended up voluntarily withdrawing from that, because for me, I joined the military to get away from where I grew up, and 2 of the 3 Ranger battalions are in the South. They're in Georgia. So, I was.
You're like, I want to go.
Yeah, I was like, man, with a 2/3 chance of ending up in Georgia, I grew up in Texas, so I'm like, I'm trying to get away from the South, experience something new. And
right. So when did that U.S. Army sniper get called to Afghanistan? Now that you've gone through your 18 X-ray, that's Green Beret, but 11 X-ray candidacy, and then you select your 11 Bravo, and off you go to RIP. You're like, I'm out of RIP. Now I'm a sniper. You go through that, right? Did you stand on each other's shoulders to raise your flag? Did you guys do that? Is that a thing?
Do you mean like at sniper school?
When you become a sniper? Yeah.
I mean, we use each other for a lot of stuff. So Yeah,
Yeah.
all kinds of fucking shooting
Very,
positions where you're literally, nut to butt with the guy. So,
but when you graduate, don't you guys make like a special flag for
oh
your
yeah,
class and you have to
silhouette,
hang it
silhouette, and you
like
hang it up,
way
yeah.
up?
And it just so happened that my graduating class, because normally they just do the normal E-type silhouettes, that you shoot at the range, but we had crazy rangers when I went to sniper school who graduated with us. So they went to the mall and they bought a Miley Cyrus cardboard cutout of Miley Cyrus or Hannah Montana. I'm sorry, Hannah Montana. Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure,
I think this was
sure.
2008. 2008.
That's when Hannah Montana
Yeah,
was
man.
doing it,
So,
dude.
so
Oh,
these
sweet
rangers
niblets.
went to the mall and bought a cardboard cut. I mean, they drew on her. We put our tabs on her, and we made it real pretty for that class.
But that's
And it's funny
awesome. That's
because if
awesome.
you
Yeah.
watch, there's a documentary that I think the Discovery Channel did that same year where they went to U.S. Army Sniper School. And in one of the clips, man, you can see Hannah Montana. They're hanging in the bay, and I'm like, whoa! It's like documented for life now. It's just so awesome. Yeah,
Forever immortalized. How cool is that? Now, okay, now that we got the antics and the fun shenanigans of you graduating sniper school, you get the call, man. Like, where are you at? And off you go. And then what? Tell me the
yeah. Well, I
call.
mean, I was already at my unit. I got stationed at Fort Lewis. Whenever I, left RIP, the big army scooped me up, because that's all special operations command stuff. So big army gave me orders to end up in one of their regular infantry units, and they put me at Fort Lewis, Washington. It was a brand new unit. When I first showed up there, we had no vehicles, no weapons, no buildings. It was nothing. And so just people. And I was one of the first privates in the unit. And so I literally helped, from the ground up. Eventually we did get stuff to train with. And I started out as a 240 machine gunner. And I was kind of poopy about it at first because, like, man, I grew up shooting rifles. I grew up on a 120-acre ranch in Texas, so I've been shooting my whole
Right.
life rifles. And so I was like, man, I want to be on a rifle, and they put me on the machine gun, and I was mad about it at first, but then of course you take that beautiful machine to a range and let it loose, and you get over anything real quick, And so yeah, I was on the weapons squad of 3rd Platoon in the 1st Battalion, 17th Infantry Regiment. That was our battalion in 5th Brigade. And yeah, I was started out as a 240 gunner, and because it was a brand new unit, one morning after morning formation, they got us all together and said, "Hey guys, we're having sniper tryouts because we have sniper spots to fill. So who wants to try out to be a sniper?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
And I was
right.
kind of surprised, I was expecting more hands to go up, and there really weren't a lot of guys that raised their hand, and I was like kind of blown away by it, and I actually hesitantly raised my hand because I was a machine gunner. I was like, will y'all even let me? Like, y'all been training me to shoot a machine gun this whole time.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's how, I ended up. It was a 65-hour tryout over 3 days, and I got selected along with 2 other guys. One of them had served at Ranger Battalion, and they were both Ranger tabbed combat experienced guys. So I really fell into a great spot to have great young leaders or experienced, leaders. Yeah, yeah.
Mentors.
And so yeah, I learned a lot from those guys, and yeah, just in 2000, we were actually training to go to Iraq first. And then, we were doing all the mount training, all the urban ops, all the, the battle drills, kicking indoors. And then when Obama wanted more troops in Afghanistan, they changed everything. We went from Iraq to Afghanistan. And so, like, we spent a lot of time and effort training a certain way. And then they kind of,
Have to
yeah,
switch it.
right before the deployment, switch it,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
that
Yeah, not urban, not very urban. Some, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
just like Adobe huts and like, Masri
Yeah,
Sharif.
yeah. So yeah, this was 2009. Early on, I made the sniper team, and then right away, I went through pre-sniper, where I learned how to be a sniper, and then a couple months later, went to actual Army sniper school in 2008, and then yeah, stayed on the sniper team all the way to 2009, and there was a lot of nonsense that kind of fell out with me, and I only deployed for about 5 months, 4 or 5 months. I actually didn't even know I was deploying until the day I left because I was hurt. And
Right.
so yeah, it was a big mess. I got my MRI results the day before deployment, and so yeah, it was kind of crazy. And So yeah, unfortunately, because I was hurt, and I ultimately learned that ortho never cleared me to deploy, so I should have never deployed to begin with. But that's another whole story. And so 2009,
So you get deployed.
2009, served there as much as I could in the best capacity that I could, with kind of one hand tied behind my back. And then 2010 I got out, and I was actually going through the med board process, so I could have medically retired, and but they told me like they're like,
And that's the medical evaluation
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
right? MEB, it stands for medical. So you usually a military service member will go through the MEB board to be evaluated with a rating, right? To go to the VA,
Yeah.
et cetera, get a pay, some helpful retirement.
Yeah, well, because of my injury, even before deployment, I was on temporary profiles for months, because like X-rays, MRIs, this, that, misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. And so I was on temporary profiles forever, deployed, came back, and was on temporary profiles for like another 3 months. And then I was like, hey, I've been on temporary profiles for like almost a year here. Am I going to be on a permanent profile at any point? Like, yeah. And then if you get a permanent profile, that's kind of kicks off the whole
exiting the service.
ETS. I wanted to do it.
Yeah, all those
I wanted
acronyms.
to do it, and but unfortunately, whenever I went to a few of the briefs, like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and the last one I did, they were like, "Hey, because this is a new process that the Army and the VA were implementing, because whenever you got done, you were going to leave with your military and your VA rating at the same time, and so it was a new process, and they said because it's a new process, y'all are going to be here for 2 years going through this." Oh, and I said, "Oh, hell no, there's no amount of money in the world worth being in this toxic place."
They're trying to get in here.
Yeah.
They're trying to get in here on you, in your head, dude. They're trying to get in your head.
I voluntarily withdrew from that too. And they were like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" They had me sign like all kinds of crazy paperwork. And I've actually had veterans tell me, "You can't voluntarily withdraw from that." I was like, "Yes, you can. And here's the paperwork to prove that you can."
And you did it. Yeah. Now, in between all that, you did go over to Afghanistan, right? You did, and you have a book that you've put together over the course of time, and and that means that you're trying to put something out there. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on, what it is that some of that leadership that you talked about, where you said your hand was tied behind your back. What do you mean by that?
Well, the best example I can give of that is when we were first, part of going to, deploying to Afghanistan is we're spending time at Kandahar airfield, CAF. We're out at CAF to prep our vehicles and our equipment, make sure everything's zero before we go to the FOB, the Forward Operating Base. And so CAF is like a huge, it's a NATO base. And so with that, there are like Subways and Pizza Huts, and there's, like it's basically a small city, in the middle of nowhere. And so, And then while we were there at CAF, my first sergeant, he took my M14 away from me because he said the sniper team had too much firepower. Yeah. And so, So he said we had too much firepower. He took my M14 and he gave it to, one of the line guys, and he said, train him up for, I don't know, I trained him for like 3 days. And I was just like, I was so mad at that. I was like, wow, why are you taking my tool away from me?
Yeah, so you used an M14, huh? That was the truck. Did you get to choose that? Is that what you were wanting?
I mean, I liked it. It was the M14 EBR. It was
did it have full auto capability with the switch, or
no? It was just
semi?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Now the EBR is like a skeleton stock style receiver with a slither stock, and it's silver and black, and it has the same 7.62 caliber round that's inside, like the M14 from Vietnam that you might be listening to and hearing us talk about this on SOFREP. I just want to kind of explain the M14 rifle, and you can also probably see it more famously in Black Hawk Down, when the snipers are going in to look for Mike Durant in that movie. They have the M14, so just to give it a reference. But yeah, so cool rifle, very Vietnam.
No, I loved it. And other than that, I'm a bolt action baby. That Remington 700, I grew up shooting that. And it's funny because my dad, I grew up shooting that. Since I was, that rifle probably outweighed me. And so,
Right. Just a young man.
and
Yeah.
so my dad would always tell me, son, this is a sniper rifle, blah, blah, blah. And I would always think like, Dad, no way. Like, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Yeah,
who does
yeah.
know?
And then the first thing they hand me when I make the sniper team is the gun I've been shooting my whole life, the M24 Remington 700. And I'm just like, oh man, Dad was right. And so, yeah.
So the difference between those two guns, though, I think, is like the M24. Your version is like a fluted barrel and a little more refined for the mil spec version than the 700. It's more civilian,
Well,
right? That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, I don't know because whenever I was getting out, the Army was revamping a lot of their sniper systems to, what was it? I don't think it was 30-06 because most of them are 308, your 7.62.
Uh-huh.
No, it was 300 Win Mag. They were bumping it up to 300 Win Mag to get that extra, 500 yards out of the engagement. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know what they use now, but back then there no fluted. I mean, our Barrett had a fluted barrel, and I think we had got a new sniper weapon system, the M110 SAS. So that was basically a modified M16 what had a suppressor you could throw on it, and yeah, it was a pretty sexy thing that our sniper. Yeah, our sniper team leader used that. So that was his. Mine was the Barrett 50 cal and that M14, and then our third guy had the M24 bolt action. And so yeah, I mean, and whenever he took my M14, because they always want you to carry your weapon with you when you're on CAF, right? You have to always have your weapon and whatever. So when he took that, I carried that Barrett with me everywhere, and I got so many looks from people like, "Why the hell is this guy carrying around this monster?" And Dave,
don't take away my M14.
That was kind of my FU, that was my FU because I knew they weren't gonna like it. I knew I was gonna get weird looks, but hey, you took my weapon, and this is all I have now, So
what's a sniper to do?
Yeah. So they were like, "No, Perez, carry your M4." Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, this identifies as an M4. My 50 cal. How about that, huh? Yeah. Crazy. So you go out and did you get much time in the scope and doing that kind of thing? Are you more of an asset to the commanders with like info, versus firepower?
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be the plan. So when we finally, moved out to the FOB and we're starting to operate, do patrols, go out on mission and all that cool guy stuff, our commander, there's actually at sniper school, they have a commander's course where the Army tries to send their, infantry officers or captains or probably even young lieutenants to learn how to employ snipers, because it's one thing to have a sniper team. It's another thing to employ them properly. And so our commander, he was a smart guy and recognized that he had no idea what to do with this. So he told my team leader, hey, y'all do y'all, you guys do what y'all need to do to get the mission done and get me my information. And so we were really excited about that, right? Like, holy smokes, we kind of, do what we got to do. And then I think it was maybe a week and a half later, their vehicle got hit and he lost his life. My commander did. And along with other guys in that vehicle, there was only one guy to survive that explosion. But yeah, and so after that happened, it was back to the first sergeant who took my M14 away from me to being in charge of it. And so yeah, it was a big ridiculous mess after that.
And then the leash was put back on you and the muzzle, and probably in a cage, where the other guy was like, here, run and do here's freedom, go run and enjoy the
And the biggest thing I regret with all that, because I ended up getting kicked off the sniper team by him for no reason, really. And so whenever he did that, I was like, you know what? Years of work, blood, sweat, and tears to be on that sniper team, and now you're gonna kick me off for no reason? Like, this is dumb. And so we had a big falling out because I went and tried out for special forces right before the deployment. And so, our unit really didn't like the guys who went and tried to better their careers or, do whatever they were going to do.
Level up to the SF.
Yeah. So whenever if you didn't make it and you came back, you were going to catch some hell. And then for us, it was even worse because they thought we were doing it to try to get out of NTC, which is a month-long pre-deployment training in California. And we're like, no, that's stupid. Like, who gives a shit about NTC? Like, we're doing it now before NTC because we've been working out hard, getting in shape, getting ready to go. And if we go to NTC, we're going to sit on our thumbs for a month. So we want to go do it now. And if we miss NTC as a happenstance, well, then hey, but no, it wasn't our.
So be it. But your window of opportunity was right there for
no.
the tab to try to go after
So we
it.
did, and only two of the four from the battalion that went. 2 out of the 4 of us got selected, and only one of them made it to the earning that green beret. The other one, unfortunately, didn't make it to the through the pipeline.
Yeah.
And
so, well, there's a song,
and so
100 mental test.
Whenever we came back, they put us on every detail. Getting ready to go to NTC, we had to do everything or help with everything. And then, that was a big reason.
Go pick leaves out of the rocks.
Yeah, so that was a big reason why he didn't like me, my first sergeant, or just kind of had it out for me, I guess you could say, because he had really no reason to not like me. He just blew some shit up in his mind, and kind of made things more ridiculous.
Well, sometimes guys in that position might have a tendency to have wanted to do the same thing you're going for, and maybe even tried without you ever knowing it, and maybe didn't get there, similar to stories like what you say. And then when you come back, it's more angst against the guy that tried because he had his own, demons to deal with, and that's not anybody else's fault but that dude's own, it's just, well, that's cool that you made it. You, like we mentioned, we talked a little bit, you can run. That's a good thing. You were running like 6-minute miles, bro. You were in the peak of your condition training as an Olympic athlete, even, like at that point, you are just, at peak levels. So now today you've got a book coming out, and that goes into what? What do you want to talk about on that?
Well, most of it is about my military service, because I wrote a lot while I was deployed. I spent a lot of time just writing what I felt and what I thought and what was happening, and just documenting everything I could. If I was out on mission, I'd have my little green book to write in. And if I was back at the FOB, I was on my laptop because I can type way faster than I can write. So I was going crazy on my laptop, just going at it. And so in 2018, we lost one of the guys we served with at the age of 29 to a rare form of cancer. And so I'm like, damn, it really spurred me to go back through and get all that stuff that I wrote. And it was a kind of a double combination. Earlier in that year, in 2018, the Seattle Times had invited me to share a story of a high school teacher saving me from being a high school dropout, because I almost didn't graduate high school. I raised myself from a young age. And so I shared this story with the Seattle Times, and they ended up liking it, invited me to do a talk, for their, it was called Ignite Education Lab. It was an annual event they used to do before the pandemic. And just where people would come talk about how education impacted their life. And so I had the opportunity to do that with some remarkable people. And I'm like, dang, this is just one crazy story from grade school. I have a whole bunch of crazy stories from grade school. It's most kids who raise themselves do. So I thought, because I always wanted, like I said, I always wanted to write about the military experience. But then I thought, it's so crazy, like how everything played out for me and the unit in itself, because the same month the unit came back from Afghanistan in July 2010, the Army deactivated that brand new unit. They had just stood up 4 years ago. They deactivated that unit that same month we got back from Afghanistan. And so with all that happening, I figured if I can just write about my craziness growing up and how I ended up in that military unit, if I can convince 1 or 2 per 10 readers that all of this stuff is real and true, just by sharing a little bit of my grade school stuff. Yeah. Because I feel like, if it was just a book about the military and me, bitching about X, Y, Z, or, it's not all a bitch fest. Of course, I talk about my journey in becoming a sniper and everything. And so, and my intention with writing it was not to, make anybody look bad or crap on the unit, just tell the story of how it happened. And so, I figured that the beginning of the book, the first 25% is my grade school years and how I ended up in that military unit. The middle 50% of the book is from my time in basic training, shipping out, to getting back from Afghanistan, to, getting out in 2010. And then the last 25% is my academic journey to being a graduate student at the University of Washington. I don't even get into how I fell into this crazy mess of being a scientist. So that's going to be the beginning of the next memoir I do in 30 years from now or something.
Welcome back. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
Sure, tell me about the book.
So the first 25% of the book is my grade school growing up, just talking about everything that I remember from my earliest memories to barely graduating high school. And then, of course, a little bit of afterward experiencing how bad life is for most teenagers and ultimately deciding to join the military. And then the middle 50% of the book is my military experience from, enlisting and shipping out to basic and, the craziness basic training is, to airborne school, through everything. And then, ultimately getting back from Afghanistan in 2010. So that's the middle 50%. And the last 25% is my academic journey that actually started on terminal leave. I was already going to school before I actually officially got out of the military. So that my academic journey follows me all the way to University of Washington as a graduate student. I got my master's degree there. And then and I also got my bachelor's degree at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. And so, yeah, I graduated in 2016 with my degrees in chemical engineering and chemistry. I got 2 bachelor's degrees. And then in 2020, I graduated with my master's in entrepreneurship from Foster Business School.
Oh. Well, congratulations on all those things. I'm going to clap for you. That is a very big success. That. Yes. Lots of study groups.
Yeah, no doubt.
lots of school.
Yeah, and actually,
yeah, you're welcome,
PhD
bro. Way to put your
I'll be
mind to to grow. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely a lifelong learner. I just got into a PhD program. I'm going to be starting in the fall. I'm going to be a student at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, getting my PhD in human genetics. So I'm really excited to go and start working on my actual career path, because wow. Everything before is kind of probing life and trying to figure out where I'm going to fall into, but
going after that.
You there, Ed?
That's very cool, because it's going to be like Shaquille O'Neal's a doctor, and then you'll be a doctor.
So yeah, I'm excited for that.
You know, it's just hard work. That's all I'm saying. Like you can. And so now you're working in virology in Washington, which really in the beginning of the pandemic was just like a ground zero for what was going on in the country. In the beginning, I remember I was playing Xbox with friends, and we're all shut down around the world, and they're like, "We're in Seattle, don't come to Seattle," And I was like, "But you were just in Utah like 3 days ago."
Yeah, actually,
so crazy. How's that been going? What
the county that I live in actually had the first COVID case in the country. Snohomish County here in Washington State had the first positive COVID, case. And so, yeah, I started here. I actually started as a temp worker. I did a lot of temp jobs for UW to finally end up in a lab, because it was pretty hard for me to, I had a lot of lab experience. I did a lot of lab research work as an undergraduate. And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, it's going to be easy for me to get a job, XYZ. Well, it was not as easy as I was expecting. Like a lot of people, kind of graduate college, and regardless of what the degree is, it's a grind to get your footing in. And so, yeah, I did a lot of temp jobs. I was like doing janitorial work a lot of times, just sweeping floors and, doing whatever I could, because I figured like, man, I'm going to network, I'm going to meet people, I'm going to get my foot, even if I'm sweeping the floor of a lab, I'll let them know like, hey,
100%.
And so, yeah, it took a lot of temp jobs, and I started as a temp worker here on a project called the Waves Project. And what that was I was like the logistics guy of the project, where I was helping ship PPE like gowns, swabs, gloves, all kinds of stuff for nurses all across Washington State, because UW nurses were going to go to people's house and swab them for the virus in their house. And so it was kind of this really cool project. And before that, I was doing another temp job as a freshman application processor, working remote from home, just going through every year. There's like 40,000 students that apply to be freshmen at UW. So they hire temp workers to go through that mountain of work. And so, yeah, I did that for 3 months, and it was a soul sucking experience being on the computer 8 hours a day, every day. But, thanks for
Right.
the opportunity and the remote work and help, float the family while the world was kind of in chaos. And,
Right.
and so, yeah, so after that project ended, that temp job, I fell into this other temp job, and they came to me. They were like, "Hey, Ricardo, you have these degrees and these unique skills. We think you'd be a good fit to do this temp job. Would you like it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, more temp work, more work." And
Right.
so, sure enough, while I was here at University of Washington Laboratory Medicine, working on the project, I networked, I talked to people, and they eventually said, "Hey, think about looking at full-time positions here." And thankfully, there was some research scientist positions that I qualified for, and I was like, "Hey, look, I qualify for these jobs," and so yeah, it's kind of how I fell into it.
That's crazy. So now you're a scientist. I mean, like, scientist,
Well, yeah, and
sniper.
another funny thing was the way I fell into the
But you're just you got to use your noodle.
yeah, no doubt. And another funny thing on how I fell into this NGS team, this next generation sequencing team, was I had just worked here for maybe 2 weeks. The first week they had me make maps for them. I've done so much for this place, like a carpenter, cartographer, like, so I was making maps of the floor layouts for like certain things they do to test for contamination. And so after I got done with those maps, I actually started like shadowing scientists to start learning how the lab operated. And so one of the scientists on the NGS team, he was going to be gone on vacation for a week. So they were like, "Hey, you shadow this guy for a week, learn him what he's going to do. And because next week he's gone and we're going to need you to fill in for him while he's gone." And so, yeah, so this NGS scientist left for vacation for a week after training me for a week. And I did a good enough job for them to want to keep me there. And it's been a lot of imposter syndrome and yeah, a lot of imposter syndrome and like, waiting for them to come.
Take it till you make it. Duran, bro. They write songs about it.
Man.
Now, very, very cool, bro. Very viral. I mean, like COVID, very today's conversation, and it's out there. And, I'm vaccinated. I went and got the Johnson & Johnson and I got boosted back in December. I still contracted it in January of 2022, but it was asymptomatic.
Oh, wow.
So I just really separated from my wife for 8 days. I don't know why. Just mentally, it just started getting in my head. I was like, where's the illness? When am I going to get the illness? And so the mental thing, and others may agree, is almost just as much as the sickness was. I was just laying there like, when am I going to start?
Yeah, the mind controls it all, really. And I was in a deep depression after I graduated and I couldn't get a job. And, because I spent 5 years in the military busting my ass, and then 5 years in college busting my ass. So I thought in my mind, I'm like, yo, I've just busted my ass for a decade. And now I just want a good job, 9 to 5, provide for my family, right off into the sunset. Like that's all I wanted, just a good job to provide. And when I couldn't make that happen, man, I got super depressed. And for me, it was like worse than my depression in the military, because now I had kids that I was kind of dragging through the mud with me. And so, yeah, I got, really, really depressed. And really what took me to change things around was my mindset was a big part of it. But my daughter, she ended up really sick with pneumonia, like almost hospitalized from it. And that broke me, because I was already like being so negative, dark cloud following me around everywhere, yelling all the time, just a horrible human being, And then my daughter got sick, and I thought to myself, I was chilling in the garage doing my thing, and I was thinking to myself, like, I just need to pretend to be happy. I just need to fake it till she gets better, because me being a depressing asshole is not helping her in any way, And so
right.
It was so weird though, because I'm sitting in my garage thinking these thoughts, like, okay, I just need to fake it till I make it, just come downstairs every morning, cheery, different demeanor, just force it out. Just in like, there was no grand scheme, no grand plan. It was just do it until she gets better, And then, you know, if I want to go back to being depressed all the time, whatever, you know. But it was like this weird kind of, I felt like the world around me was changing when I was just thinking positive. I felt like things around me were changing. It was
Right.
so
Yeah.
weird.
Depression hits everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. And so it was just so weird. And then like a week later, I got that invite from the Seattle Times to get, no, fake it till she gets better. You know, there was no like fake it till you make it, no long-term scheme or plans. And so, yeah, I could just feel the world around me. I'm just hanging out in my garage and it feels like the world around me is like morphine. It was so weird. And so about a week later, I think it was maybe even a few days later, less than a week probably, the Seattle Times emailed me with that opportunity. And I kind of took it as a hint from the universe, as like, this is going to be the start of a better trajectory in my life, because I had applied to do that talk the year before, you know, in December 2016, late December, I saw the ad on Facebook. They said, hey, call us, tell your story of education, blah, blah, blah. So I called, I left my story, and I never heard back from them. So I thought, oh, they didn't like it. You know, it is what it is. So I went on with my life.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, yeah, it was so weird to sit down, have those positive thoughts and do that. And then the Seattle Times reach out and be like, yo, we still have your story and it's a great story. Do you want to give it? So I was like, wow, how weird. Like, you know, so at that point I had 5 weeks to get ready to give this public speaking gig that the Seattle Times is putting on. And, you know, I've never been a public speaker at all. You know, I mean, I kind of do it now a little bit. I visit schools and, you know, I talk to the kids where I grew up and share my experience with them in terms of my scientist now or my sniper back then. And so, yeah, you know, I just gave that talk and, you know, it kind of helped pull me from my depression, because at that point I had something to work on and something to do and something to focus my efforts in my mind. And so, but after the talk was getting ready to end, I was like, man, I got to do something, because I can't just go home to back to being depressed. I know there was no magical email that was going to come anymore. There was, you know, there was nothing. So I was like, man, I got to do something. So what I ended up doing was mechanic work. Basically throughout the week, I would do research on YouTube. Like, I'm a YouTube mechanic, you know, I would just do research on YouTube, how you change this out, how you swap that out. And so, and on the weekend when my wife wasn't at work, she could watch the kids and I can go be a mechanic on the weekend. Or sometimes that stuff would bother me so much, I would go at, you know, at 10 o'clock midnight into the garage and start messing with it, because, you know, I don't, you know, I like to get stuff done. And so,
right, it's on your mind. You're just a tinkerer.
Yeah. So yeah, I just started working on my vehicle. I completely redid the brakes, emissions, the steering, you know, from the tie rod ends to the control arms to, man, I did a lot of work over a few months. And eventually I did all the mechanic work that I could. And I'm like, damn, now I got to find something else to do. So I picked up sewing, because my wife, she's 4'11", like 110 pounds soaking wet. She's very small and petite. So a lot of her clothes needs alterations. And so I was like, you know what, go pick up a $40 sewing machine off Craigslist or something and get myself busy again. So yeah, I kept myself busy with sewing for a little bit.
That's a steal of a deal on Craigslist, bro.
Right.
The sewing machines are expensive.
Yeah, no, it is. It was a good deal.
They are. Yeah, I got a place over here in Utah. It's like $8,000.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's like all computerized sewing machine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying, I've seen some sewing machines that were just super expensive that like look like what my mom used to use, like a Singer, but they're just crazy, like computer LED screens and stuff.
Oh yeah, they get crazy with them for sure. And but also with that Craigslist, you know, with all that mechanic work I did, I bought a $90 tool lot off Craigslist, because I'm like, man, I need tools to do all this work. Let me look for a tool lot, you know. So I ended up falling into the right spot. Man, I got so many tools for $90. And I basically did, you know, I did buy tools here and there to kind of supplement what I needed to do the jobs. But man, talk about, you know, for maybe at most $200, I did everything, you know, I did everything.
Right. So you made a minimal investment, found good deals, but you took that skill set and it was able to turn it over for you a few times. I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
and it still pays off to this day.
So,
changed the radiator out last year and still do the work when it needs it.
Right. Now, when you're in the Army, did you have a call sign as a sniper? Was there something specific that they called you, like
Oh,
harvester
headhunter was our
or
call sign in Afghanistan.
headhunter? That's
Yeah.
intense, bro. I wonder why they
Yeah,
called you
that was
that.
our team leader. You know, the team leader is the one, you know, the sergeants who have the, and actually my Army sniper team leader was an ex-Marine sniper as well. He actually left the Marines to join the Army and try to do special forces. And so, and it was really, I hurt for him because he left the Marine Corps that he loved so much to do special forces. And the Army ended up not letting him go try out for special forces, even though he was an infantryman, because he had really bad scoliosis. And they were like, "Oh, we're sorry, you can't, do special forces because your scoliosis is so bad." But like, man, he's an infantryman already. Like, he's already out here with 100-pound ruck,
Right, like, and he speaks 3 languages, right? Come on, guy, give him a chance. It's like, hello. But sometimes you have to question why the guy got the gig and you didn't, and why you do what you. It's like you just got to look at whatever divine intervention is out there. Okay, it's the path that you've been put on, right? Sometimes, like I've said to people when I got my injury, people are like, "What direction did the military give you?" I said, "It really gave me a U-turn." They said, "Go back and figure something else out," is what it did for me in about a 6-month period. So what took you a few years to get, I got in 6 months. So it's like, to each their own.
Yeah,
and,
we are. And I have buddies that I try to help.
Yeah. Now what I want to do is.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, your buddies that you try to help and probably get rated in VA benefits and stuff.
Yeah. I just have a lot of friends, from that deployment. It was a rough deployment. Obviously, a lot of guys, lost their lives and lost their limbs. So I have a lot of guys that I still talk to and love, that they're still kind of trying to find that U-turn, trying to make their way back. And, I let everybody know, man, whether I served with you or not, I'm always here to vent to or to be ears, whatever you need. Because, he mostly vents to me, but I'm so glad, the 10% of the time he's there for me when I vent back to him. It's beautiful, so I don't, we need to support each other the most we can.
That's nice. Now, listen, I ask people on my social media like questions in advance of my shows and episodes, right? It's kind of a fun segment, and they throw stuff out there. And I'm just going to ask you what I said. What would you ask a U.S. Army sniper? I should have said a scientist too. Right. However, I just hit up sniper. So you can imagine where people go with these questions. Now, somebody, okay, so let's say Ajax is his name. He says, okay, here's his question. That's the question. He says, do you think Trump would have done a better job with the troop withdrawal that just went down? Do you think that the past president would have done anything different than what was already transpiring with the current president?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer. It's a very when I was also a Texas State handgun instructor, as part of my undergrad, like to help, my own small business to provide for my family, get by. And whenever Texas State, whenever the state troopers and the DPS, Department of Public Safety, trains you to be a handgun instructor, they tell you, we will not answer your what if questions, because a lot of times they're just so circumstantial that it's hard to really give a solid answer. But I would hope that Trump would have been more open to listening more to the people who know, like there's a lot of people who spent time there. They've spent a lot of their life there, and those should have been the people that should have been kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, collaborated with, or, asked, just looking for insight from these people and what they thought, because, it was a very messy withdrawal, and, it was going to be messy no matter how we left. But I think the speed at which we left was kind of the cause of the big, there was no need for human beings to be throwing themselves at airplanes and getting caught up in landing gear,
Yeah.
Very, very.
Or handing their babies up to the Marines, trying to get them out, another Saigon style situation.
it definitely could have been done better, and it was
Okay,
going to
well,
be messy no matter what. But you know, and like I said, hopefully,
but
yeah.
it's a what if.
Those are the tough ones.
It's a what if. Okay, well, thank you, Ajax, for the question. Let's move on to Emily. So Emily says she wants to know, what is one thing that's being a sniper, what have you learned about life?
Well, I've learned a lot about myself, you know, because I made a childhood dream come true. You know, growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut, a fighter pilot, and a sniper. And so, you know, I worked really hard, and I had a lot of naysayers in the process saying like, oh, they want people with combat experience, or they want X, or they want Y. And I just tuned them out. I said, I don't care what you think. This is something I've wanted my whole life. And now I have an opportunity to make it happen, you know? So I would be there doing push-ups on my own, and my buddies would be like, what are you doing? I'd be like, getting ready for the sniper tryout, you know, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, and then when I made that childhood dream come true, I realized like, wow, if I made this dream come true, I can make, you know, anything else come true. I just gotta work hard and dedicate myself, you know?
Very good. Thank you, Emily, for that question. Jay Charles, he says, what is your favorite optic rifle combo? And, you know, what is that?
Yeah, that's the Leopolds. I have used some of the Vortex scopes. So Vortex scopes are really nice too. But of course, most of, you know, the military contracts with Leopold. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a variable scope. So on our Barrett, we had the scope that you could zoom in and out, and our Remington 700 or M24, it was a 10 power fixed. So I'd have to say a variable powered scope with a Remington 700 bolt action rifle with whatever caliber. I just love bolt actions. You know, obviously more juice gets me out further, but a Leopold or a Vortex multi-variable with mil dots. I prefer mil dots rather than the tick marks, because I'm old school sniper trained, I guess, you know. And
love it. I love it. No, that's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Let's see here. Peter, he says, I know what not to ask him. How many kills? Is that a thing? Is that notched in your scoreboard? Do you not talk about that?
It's 0 for me. You know, like I said, I was already kind of handicapped from the get-go. And while I was there in the capacity that I was there, it was very rare to get into a firefight. And so most of the time we were just going on patrol and getting blown up, you know, and you kind of had to be in the right place at the right time. Like, people were getting into firefights throughout the week, but they were very few and far between. And then after I left Afghanistan, pretty much coincided with them relieving us from the Arghandab River Valley, which is where southern Afghanistan, where we were taking all our casualties, and, you know, the KIA, WIA. And so
KIA is killed in action, WIA wounded in action, correct? That's what you're referencing there.
So after we took, you know, we lost in the first 2 weeks after we were at the FOB, I think it was like 9 guys had already lost their lives. So over those first 2 or 3 months of us being there, it was just nonstop. And so yeah, like I said, and then whenever we got relieved from that area, they got into firefights more often. But when they got relieved of that area, I was already gone off the sniper team and dealing with headache. So so I unfortunately I get one firefight that I was in.
Dang.
The one firefight that I was in, it was one of the longest firefights of the deployment, I just learned. So there's kind of like a small feather in my cap for the little bit of experience that I did get to experience. But yeah, so not for me, man. I'm
right.
Jeez,
that's wild. No, wow. Thank you for being open and honest, you know?
Yeah, and there's no shame in it, man.
No, I love it. And I'm just like, wow.
I just wanted to comment one more thing with that real quick, though. I read the book.
So you're an ass.
In the book, Kill Bin Laden, Delta Force operators are hunting Bin Laden right after
say the book again.
And not one of them shot around during the whole time they were hunting Bin Laden. So it's just like, dang, man, these are Delta Force operators hunting Bin Laden, and not even these guys fired around the entire time they were there, because they had special forces and local fighters doing it for them, you know. But I was like, yeah, this is a beautiful insight, you know, like, wow, I would have never guessed.
Right. No, I've actually interviewed one of those guys.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, you're in good company. I interviewed Travis, who's a Delta guy. Yeah, and he was cave to cave. They were like, teapot was still cooking, cigarette butts were still smoking, and then he had gotten into Pakistan, and they were halted at Pakistan's line you know, and they couldn't. This is what he had explained to me when we were being interviewed. I was like, wow, you know, that's crazy. Now, another Peter says, how do you deal with and cope with your actions done in the warfare? So, you know, you've been trained up to go do this.
Mhm.
You go out and you're mentally prepared to do what is being asked of you by your countrymen. And then you do those deeds and you get into firefights and then you come home. Now what? How are you handling that? Are you going to groups? Do you just keep it internalized?
Yeah, no, thank you. When I got back, man, I went to intensive outpatient therapy, IOP, which is like, I think it was 3 weeks long, where I went every day, and you know, it was like group talking with other vets, and just hearing the whole gamut of stories, and just kind of sharing and trying to grow and heal from the things we experience and do. And like I said, you know, I never took a life, but it's not to say that I didn't see others doing it, or death and destruction around me, you know. And so,
Right. Sure.
so yeah, you know, it's a rough place to be. And the way I always looked at it, the way I kept my focus was, I would only worry about the things I can control. Like, because there's a lot of guys that I talk to, they would always talk, you know, they tell me about how they'd worry about stepping on a landmine, which of course you're going to worry about that stuff. But for me, you know, those are the things I pushed out of my mind. Like, I'm not going to even, you know, those are things I can't help. Why am I going to worry about things that I can't help? And so it's really just about
the what ifs,
can control, and just hoping for the best, and going out there and just operating, because there's a mission that needs to be done. And so, yeah, you just focus on and for me, I have less anxiety going out on mission because I felt confident in my training and what I could do. And I'd have more anxiety coming back from mission, knowing that I was going to deal with these people that have it out for me, you know, like they're in charge of me, they control my life, and they have me under their thumb right now. So it's not very fun.
Sometimes you're like, well, I'll just hang out here with this rock in this cliff area. I'll just kick it here. You know, the rock's got my back. The lizard is my friend. I have fresh air. It's nice. There's nothing bossing me around, I bet. You know?
Yeah, man. The shepherd.
Well, I just want to say that you've been a yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's enough sheeps and wolves out there to battle each other. I like to say, be a shepherd, you know, be the one that helps, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, look, I just want to say you've been a wonderful guest on SOFREP today. And I just want to say, is there any website or anything that you want to plug to, like, you know, put it out there so we can put it in the description? Is there anything you want to just let us know about that's coming up or anything?
Yeah, my book is out on Amazon now. If you just go to Amazon, type Born to Fail book. And I have it right here too, if you'd like to. I know that the radio listeners might not see it.
Born to Fail?
Yeah, Born to Fail. And so you.
Oh yeah, it says Ricardo Perez, Born to Fail. It's got a sniper on the front.
Yeah, see, that's me as a kid right there.
Or no, that's a Barrett. That's the Barrett.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at. Oh, for those of you watching, you can see the book's got the cover of him and his 50 cal that he was talking about, and that star patch. Oh, I know what that is. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
2nd Infantry Division. And so yeah, that's my book. And all the money goes back to working on the audiobook. The audiobook's going to be crazy because I recorded conversations with a lot of the higher ups because they were all lying about stuff, and I didn't want to get in trouble for their lying about.
Oh yeah.
So I have hours of conversations that I'm going to put on the audiobook. So man, that's going to be an immersive audiobook. I'm super excited about getting that done. And we're also working on a documentary because, you know, the real story.
Wow. So there's going to be some can of worms opened in that scenario.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And so we're also working on a documentary. So all this money for my book sales, I'm not pocketing any of it. It all goes back towards these other projects and lifting the voices up from the men. And I also filed a patent, and that's where I hope to get my money in my pocket, is for my patent. So my book sales, it's all going back always from now on to the end of time. It's going to go back to helping the guys that I served with and their families. So support us as much as you can. And on my website, ricardopperez.com, you can go and learn more about me. You can sign up for my newsletter, and every month I send out a newsletter just letting people know what's going on with my small business stuff and what's kind of going on in my life. And every 4 months, I will be sharing the expense and revenue reports with my subscribers for the book. So that way people know where their money went and, you know, how much money's coming in and what the stuff costs going out. So it's all going to be as transparent as possible. So if you'd like to know how your money and this money is getting used, sign up on my website.
That's so awesome. Well, Ricardo, you're a joy to talk to. Thanks for teaching me about education and keeping your mind fresh by going to read a book.
That helps a lot.
And
a lot.
you know, and nothing will ever go away with the smell of gunpowder. We'll always like that smell for some reason.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having
You
me on, Rad.
know, to my SOFREP radio listeners, yeah. Oh, thank you for the kind words, and I don't mean to step on you. So, you know, dude, it's awesome. I'm just grateful to be here.
Same.
So thank you, Ricardo. And with that, thank you for listening to SOFREP Radio's episode with Ricardo Perez, United States Army sniper, scientist, and we'll catch you later. Peace.
Bye, everyone.